So the Republican Party largely remained united in recent days in confirming President Trump's cabinet nominations. Former Senate Majority Leader Mitch McConnell, though, has at times been his party's only dissenting voice. He was the lone Republican who voted no against Tulsi Gabbard in her nomination for Director of National Intelligence yesterday. And today, he voted against Robert F. Kennedy Jr. for Health and Human Services Secretary. To discuss all of this, let's bring in our political panel, Liza Acevedo and Kevin Sheridan. She previously served as communications director for Doug Emhoff, and Kevin served as the spokesperson for the RNC and a senior advisor for the Romney-Ryan campaign. Thanks for having you both here. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
What do you make of McConnell?
Well, listen, when you think about the vote today, especially as it pertained to RFK, this was personal for McConnell, right? He had a childhood polio. But then what struck me, I think, was the president's reaction to the way McConnell voted, calling him a bitter guy. So I think when I think about the Republicans and their place in the Senate and the House right now, you know, some of them might be intimidated to go against the current president, right? They may be saying, hey, if I vote against him, I'm going to have some political implications here. Mitch McConnell at this point, you know, he has nothing to lose. He's had a long-standing career in the United States Senate, and he's served his time well.
What do you make of it?
As long as Collins and Murkowski don't join with him, and even if they do, they still need one more. Mitch McConnell can do what Mitch McConnell wants to do at this point. It's ironic that he was whipping votes just a few months ago, and now he's on the other side of that. But it is personal, obviously, with him. It wasn't personal about Hegseth or.
He says it's not personal in his statements.
Well, yeah, he said that. He said it was on the vaccines. That's perfectly understandable coming from his perspective. But the real question is, does he try to throw a wrench in the works when this gets serious? And that's the big, beautiful bill. That's some real legislative challenges that the Republicans have to get done because they ran on it and they won on it.
Where are the Democrats these days in terms of, now that most of the cabinet's getting through and looks like Republicans are going to stamp their approval on the Trump nominees, what do the Democrats do now? What's kind of the mode of operation moving ahead?
Yeah, it's a great question. Remember, the Democrats, we don't have the White House, we don't have the House, we don't have the Senate, right?
So what do you have?
So, well, we have officials in the states right now. We have our state and local leaders, and that's what we need to look to. But you also saw today the Democrats were united, right? They were united yesterday against Gabbard in the vote. They were united today against RFK in the vote. So it's good to see a sign of unity from the Democrats. And I think they need to continue to, frankly, remain united and make a little bit of noise out there, talk directly to their constituents. And when there's something that happens, whether it's Trump or a cabinet official, they need to continue to be out there with their constituencies, letting them know why they should be concerned.
It is interesting, just to follow up on that. You look at some of the accountability efforts on the Democratic side being done by state attorney generals going after President Trump's use of executive power. Is that really where the action seems to be? Well,
the president's going back at them, right? You're seeing his comments and you're seeing exactly what he's saying. Well, maybe we should get rid of some of these judges.
What are traditional Republicans? You worked for the Romney-Ryan campaign. When I know you've adjusted to the new reality of the Republican Party, but for those who come out of a more traditional bearing in the GOP, what do they think of President Trump's use of executive power? Is it something they applaud, generally speaking?
I can't speak for all of them, but I think if you look at the numbers and the conversations that I have, the Republican Party has never been more united than it is right now. That's just a fact by the numbers. There are going to be people who push back on some of his policies from time to time, but the writing is on the wall. Donald Trump led the entire Republican Party this time. It wasn't, fractious in any way. It was a very clear mandate. He won all 7 swing states. So Republicans are going to have a very hard time going against him, knowing that there's the whole MAGA network out there, both online and in the grassroots. And if they want to keep their jobs, I think right now they're going to go with the Trump agenda until they can't. And that hasn't even come close to happening yet.
What about Robert F. Kennedy Jr.? He ran for president first as a Democrat, then as an independent, and he has this Maha, Make America Healthy Again movement, coalition, whatever you want to call it. How are Democrats dealing with President Trump co-opting that RFK Jr. movement into his own political coalition? Because a lot of people who support RFK Jr. now in the cabinet were either independents or longtime Democrats.
Sure. Well, I think you saw it today, right? A little bit. Democrats, again, uniting, coming together. They were unanimous in voting against RFK. But let's make no mistake, right? The midterms are essentially right around the corner. So they're going to need to do everything that they can to reach voters, right? And so if RFK does something now in his position again, if Donald Trump does something and the Democrats see it as unfit, they need to call it out, and they need to be crystal clear and blunt about that.
Is RFK Jr. the most influential member of the cabinet?
I don't know about that. I think you could make a case that because he's taking the party in a different direction that he may be. The Maha movement is a real thing. It cuts across both parties, and a lot of moms out there want to see what he's going to do. So we'll see how he acts, what his first priorities are. If he goes in there and he wants data on vaccines, or if he wants, the additives out of foods. How does that all look? How does he execute it? He may well be one of the most influential because he comes from a different perspective than anybody else. Ultimately, Donald Trump's in charge of the cabinet. He's going to lead the policies that he ran on, and I think RFK Jr. was a big part of his election victory, though, and he earned his place there.
We're going to have to leave it there. Appreciate you both coming by. Come back again sometime soon. A lot to discuss, a lot happening in Washington and across the country. Appreciate your perspectives.